Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Through the Lens of Learning Career Development series. And we are continuing the ABCs of career development. Today we are on the letter H, and H is for humility. And we are going to talk about the need to realize that we all have limitations and that we acknowledge that we have limitations and that we can work on those and we can acknowledge that they exist and that we are never this perfect product being and self, that we're always a work in progress. And I was struggling to come up with what am I going to use for the H. Several different terms came up and they just weren't comfortable. They didn't sit right. And I automatically knew for I what I'm going to use. And I was like, I got to do these in order. And so I looked for some options of what I could talk about. And what's interesting is humility came up as an option. And humility is something that we are going to be talking about in my class today as well. And reading, and we were talking about leadership and the common good, and we are reading Bible passages, and that happens at least once a week. We read some Bible passages, and I will tell you, thinking about my own limitations and my own struggles, is I grew up in a Catholic household and went all through Catholic schools except for 1 year, but graduated high school from Catholic schools. And right before I got married, I ended up kind of, in a way, at the end of my senior year, I was getting close to questioning a lot of the Catholic Church and their teachings and things like that, and just growing into my own person a lot more, and ended up breaking away from the church. And I still respect the Catholic faith and the traditions and everything that I learned growing up. I consider myself a Christian today. And so it's been an interesting journey to think. I mean, that was a long time ago that happened, that I graduated and went through a lot of that. And coming back and in this specific class teaching about leadership and the common good, and integrating a lot of humanities pieces, a lot of religious, spiritual pieces, pieces from the Bible. I was a bit worried about how exactly this was going to work. And it's been really good for me. I'll tell you more maybe in the next episode after I teach this first class with these first passages. But for me, it's been a different lens or a different perspective that I've been able to take a look at this as I went and looked at some of the parables and these lessons that are in the Bible, and being able to talk about them from the lens or perspective of leadership and support of the community, of the common good, of society, all of those aspects. It got me excited. I am very excited to dig in and to be able to make these connections and talk about this with students. I feel like from my upbringing, we may have read passages, we may have looked at different stories and parables and things like that, and it was from that religious, that spiritual point of view versus, and I was worried that I was going back to that and having to teach from that perspective. So being able to blend the aspect that I know, the leadership, the business, the management side, with that religious, that spiritual aspect, these parables, these lessons, is a different twist. And I really appreciate it so much more. And a lot of times, having that humility to understand that we do have these limitations, we do have to work and continue to grow and learn for ourselves. I feel like I've already experienced that humility and will continue to experience that as I am going through this process specifically that I'm talking about and preparing these lessons and these teachings with the students. And gaining my own insight and knowledge and growing myself in the process, which is really amazing. So what I would recommend to you is that you take a step back and think to yourself, and maybe you have to take a piece of paper and brainstorm, but think to yourself, where are some of your limitations? Where can you be a little bit more humble and acknowledging that there are things that you need to work on? Everybody has something. It may seem small, it may seem big, whatever that might be. And if it is something that's big, how can we break that down into smaller pieces and start to take it piece by piece, those baby steps, to work on it? And the greatest thing, too, is with humility, is when we allow ourselves to be that example to others. There's so many individuals that, and I know I feel like I'm a former perfectionist, that it had to be just right, it had to be perfect, and it doesn't. It doesn't. Even with my dissertation, I remember hearing, done is good enough, like you're not solving world peace, that kind of thing. So where are the aspects, and how can we share that with others so that they also experience that and think for themselves, like, hey, where am I? What limitations do I have? What can I work on? How can I be an example to others? And those can be amazing, and they can be life-changing for people to see that as an example, to be able to dig into their own self and have that awareness and figure out it may lead them to a different path. It may let them strengthen what was either broken or strained for them, and be a much better person, more successful, even a mentor and example to others as well, that can have a ripple effect for sure. So today, the podcast episode was about humility. Would love for you to join us in either the Facebook or the LinkedIn group, Career Development Club, and share your thoughts on humility, and especially humility when it comes to self and the workplace, whether it's individual or in that group setting. And would love to hear more and your examples and your stories. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for listening, and I'll catch you on the next episode.